Believe it or not, every once in a while someone asks me if I'm actually an alien, and I have to say no, even though it would certainly explain a lot. Now, I suppose it's technically possible that I could be an alien and I just not know it, but if I were actually consciously aware of being an alien and I had a spaceship, well, to be perfectly honest, I probably would have left years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy your planet, and I've become fond of many of you humans, but let's just say that when I look at the bigger picture and I see the many troubles that lie ahead, well, it would be very tempting for me to try and escape at some point. But then when I got to my home planet, I would say Earth was a beautiful place. But even though most of the people I met were nice, they were still incredibly primitive and ignorant. They thought they were advanced because of their technology, but they usually failed to use it responsibly. The other major problem, of course, was the extreme corruption of the ruling class. The gap between the poor and the wealthy was so absurd that I don't think any of you would believe me if I told you. And at one point the corruption got so bad that my country alone was in like 6 wars, but they were calling them things like, kinetic military actions or freedom initiatives. And the manipulated economy that was run through fraud by private banks became so absurd at some point that they actually had to raise the debt limit to 16 trillion. But since this mega bank was so powerful and had almost all of our politicians either in their pocket or afraid to speak up, except for a few exceptions like Ron Paul, but then the corrupted media would just, whitewash him to the point of blatant absurdity too. Anyway, my country started out very prosperous, and it was a bastion of hope and freedom in the world at one point, but then in gradual increments, things began to decay. The ruling classes of the country and the world became extremely corrupt and used their knowledge of, crony economics and wealth, their power, their legalese, their insider knowledge and network to keep the people in the dark. And so rather than empower the people, they decided to use their esoteric knowledge against them for their own selfish benefit instead. However, even though I felt like I could see what was going on to some extent, the frustrating part was that you would try to warn people and they would call me a conspiracy theorist. Our country just slipped so far into debauchery that it literally became like living in a real-life idiocracy or a bad science fiction movie. Now, my people weren't nearly as stupid as the ones portrayed in Idiocracy, but they weren't as far off as you would like to think. The culture just literally degenerated in front of you. The people became obsessed with petty, trivial things like sports and celebrity gossip, video games, and reality television. Anyway, Earth was awesome, and I learned a lot. And I met a lot of interesting humans and acquired many great memories. I would have been happy to stay if the people were waking up faster. But too many of the potential futures were heading in some very negative directions. So I bailed out. So, but if I had to sum up what, visiting 21st century Earth was like, it kind of reminds me of the last scene in the story, The Lord of the Flies. And to kind of paraphrase the ending, you arrive at this beautiful place, and then you take a look around you, and you see the wars and the corrupt governments and the crony economics, and you quickly find out in horror this amazing planet is actually in the hands of these extremely primitive and like savage children. And you just want to scream at everybody like, what are you people doing? Okay, that's a wrap.